Good afternoon, my name is Robert Nance. Today I will be doing my informative speech on the country of Scotland, so obviously I'll be doing the place speech. I would like to start today off with a little apology. My great-grandfather's recently passed away, so it was a tad bit difficult to get family members all together in one place for the speech. So as I said, I do apologize for that. But on to the speech, a little bit about myself. My name is Robert Nance, as I said earlier. I served 5.5 years in the U.S. Navy, active duty. I was a U.S. submariner. I served a Virginia-class nuclear-powered submarine, and that was actually how I got to know the country of Scotland. Scotland, I've been there 3 times, due to the Navy, obviously, all in one deployment. The first time I went to Scotland, the very first visit, was the town of Faslane. I ported in Faslane in February of 2013. A little bit about Faslane, very small town. It's right next to Gairloch, which for those of you who aren't familiar with Scotland, when they say lake, they refer to it as loch, like Loch Ness, Gairloch, etc. Right adjacent to Gairloch, as I said, was the port stop of my first deployment. It is one of the more major submarine bases of the Royal Navy, and that's a topic I would definitely like to cover. That was one of the most memorable things, was stepping on that pier and having the Royal Navy sailors there to greet us. The Scots are some of the friendliest people you ever meet. We came out, they wanted to shake our hands, they wanted to hug us, they actually invited us out to the local pub out in town to come party and get to know them and get to see more of Scotland, essentially. So that was a really good time. We actually got to go out there. I actually traded some U.S. Navy medals for some Royal Navy medals. It was a really good time. The second place I would like to discuss is Helensburgh. Now, Helensburgh was a town that was probably about a 10-minute drive from Faslane. It's more of a recreational town for the sailors. Just like Faslane, it's more of like a Royal Navy sailor-based town. It's full of pubs and restaurants and shops. That's basically meat and potatoes. Picture is almost downtown Prattville, but just a little bit bigger. The population of Helensburgh is about 15,000 people. So like I said, not a very huge town, but not exactly a small podunk town at all. It was originally founded in 1865. It was, as I said, it was a small fishing village off the coast of Gairloch, as Faslane was. One of my most memorable times from Helensburgh was this place called Lito's Pizza. It's a very small hole-in-the-wall restaurant. You walk in, and it's got a buffet line full of different menu items, different foods, different meats, etc. I'll never forget this meal. So what they do, actually, before I get to that, you go through this buffet line, you pile whatever you want to in your plate, and they'll take it in the back and they'll put it in a deep vat and they'll deep fry it for you in the back. So anything you pick out, no matter what it is, they'll deep fry it. So that day I had fried pizza. Of course, I had onion rings. I had like a fried Heath bar, I believe it was. But the fried pizza was a definite experience I'll never forget. So a very cool experience in Helensburgh. Edinburgh is the big place I'm going to talk about today. A little bit of history about Edinburgh. It was first founded in 1130 AD by King David I. It was actually one of the very first royal burghs established in Scotland, which is one thing that really hits home with me. I'm a big history nut. I do love history. I love going around and looking at the theaters in Edinburgh. I love seeing especially the Edinburgh Castle, which I will get to shortly. But that's a little bit of history on Edinburgh. Current day Edinburgh has around 112 parks, and an interesting fact, actually has more trees than population, which is astounding because the population of Edinburgh is about 482,000 people. So that's an astounding number of trees. The architecture in Scotland, as I said, I appreciate the historical architecture, things like that, the statues. Churches are mainly a Gothic architectural style, and it was interesting because the residential areas actually differ. The residential areas are more of a classical kind of style, European classical style of homes. One very memorable thing, I don't know if you see a trend here, I'm recalling memories from the place. One very memorable thing I did have was I got to try the Scottish delicacy which abounded in Edinburgh, which was haggis. For those of you who don't know what haggis is, it's a delicacy in Scotland. They take the sheep's stomach and they stuff it full of its other organs. So it's brain, liver, heart, intestines, you name it. They stuff it in there. They sew it up and they actually boil it for you right there. And the specific haggis I got was actually fried haggis balls. So I actually beer battered it and deep fried it. I like my deep fried stuff apparently. They deep fried it and they brought it out to you on a pile of mashed potatoes and gravy. It was delicious. It was a very odd delicacy, but delicious at the same time. But that's probably one of my most memorable things from Edinburgh. My last topic is going to be Edinburgh Castle. Now, Edinburgh was actually founded on Edinburgh Castle. Edinburgh Castle is the main meat of the town. It was built in 850 BC, and for those of you who not really familiar with Scotland or Edinburgh at all, it was actually built on top of an extinct volcano, which is actually called Castle Rock. It was built as a fortress to defend from ocean attacks, which actually I will try my best to include some pictures from Edinburgh Castle on my trip to Scotland in the discussion. But if you look out actually on the coast, probably 75% of your view is going to be ocean looking over the castle wall. And when you look behind you, it's all Edinburgh. Very interesting concept because it was mainly meant for beachfront attacks. So any ships coming into the town of Edinburgh, the very first thing you're going to see is those huge cannons, facing straight at you. So a very interesting concept for a castle architecture. The castle itself is phenomenal. Like I said, I love the Gothic architecture. I love going through and actually witnessing the history in the castle. Some of the kings that stayed there was King David II and King James I of England. It was very interesting being able to go through the rooms because we actually got to go through the rooms and actually got to see where these kings slept. These leaders of actual countries slept in the bed you're looking at right here. This king of this actual, King James I of England actually looked at this painting of himself that was on the wall. Very, very astounding experience. But yes, Edinburgh Castle was a great piece of history of Edinburgh and a great piece of history of Scotland, and I'm pretty proud to actually say that I've been there. That actually concludes my speech today. I hope everybody enjoyed that. I do enjoy talking about overseas countries. I do love talking about overseas places like that, and as I said before, Scotland is one place I'm very fond of, so I'm glad I got to share that with each and every one of you. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate it.